So that is like I felt, I can talk to people. I can start talking to people. And where I called a friend of mine. She was in Flipkart back then. And I was like, yeah, I want to start a podcast. And she's like, what is a podcast? I was like, I also don't know much. I want to have a conversation, basically interview. I called her. I started phone recording. So I did a phone recording ka on and phone pe wo record kiya हमने. And there I realized कि यार engineering is not my cup of tea. I don't want to do like 5-6 लाख खर्च होंगे, इससे अच्छा कुछ और कर लिया जाए. तो I left engineering after 1 year.
So, podcasting as a career in 2024, considering the recent developments, Spotify and then YouTube music getting into
हाँ.
this and all. So, what would you like to say, advice in terms of whatever solo podcast or interview podcast to the beginners?
Because when you're Besharam, you have to face the humiliation. Some or the other person will say it on your face. Not everybody is kind enough, right?
अपनी कुर्सी की बेटी बांध लो, मौसम बिगड़ने वाला है. So welcome to another episode of Podcast Par Charcha. In this super special episode, we have a passionate podcast enthusiast, a podcast mentor, podcast coach, podcast expert, and last but not the least, the host of the popular M Square podcast. So to my viewers, to my listeners, to my subscribers, it's a great privilege to have the one and only Anurag Manik on Podcast Par Charcha. So Anurag, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर कमिंग ऑन दिस शो एंड और आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है पॉडकास्ट पर चर्चा में.
Thank you, Harsh, for that amazing introduction. I like that thing. I like when this starting the podcast was for a very special reason to sound cool, and you made me sound really cool. So I'm very happy with the intro. I would say I'm very flattered.
Okay.
For that. Thank you so much for having me up here.
So, Anurag, look, before we start off, initially,
हाँ.
मैं जानना चाहूंगा about your background and your inclination towards podcasting. वो कैसे शुरू हुआ, including the year, the timeline. So yeah, over to you.
So अगर आपको फिर background I have to ask. So I was a very studious kid in my early ages. So I want, as every studious kid is there, no, like after 10 they're like कि आपको engineering करनी चाहिए, you should aim for IIT and all. So
Yes.
that is when I went to Visakhapatnam to do in my 11th 12th. The day I reached Visakhapatnam, I opened the books. I was like, यार 10th में ABCD पढ़ा रहे थे, and suddenly in 11th they're asking me to write essays with those letters that I have learned. And it was quite a setback. And I was like, shit, this is not what I signed up for. I thought 10th jaisa maths hoga, 10th jaisa physics, chemistry, but it was a new, different dimension. Yeah. But I signed up for it. So I was like, cool. In my mind, I was always that bright kid, no? So I cannot just go back. And so uske baad 11th, 12th, I did. 11th to still was manageable. 12th made came integration, and it just disintegrated me and my mathematics and physics. I remember in my 12th, I got 40 marks, 39 marks in mathematics. I passed because passing was 33. Because I left 60 marks for paper, which had integration in it. So I just attempted 40.
Integration.
Yeah, I attempted 40.
Engineer.
Like, yeah, I got 39. And then I couldn't clear IIT or anything. So I decided to do the next step, which everyone does, to go to Kota. And so I went to Kota for a year, stayed there. And then I again gave CG. Luckily, I cleared my CG PET. I'm from Chhattisgarh. So the local entrance jo tha, wo clear hua. I joined engineering college. तो यहाँ पे जो number 1 या number 2 था उस time पे I joined because वहाँ पे 350 रैंक आ गई थी. तो some grace I saved for my parents कि चलो कुछ तो निकला, कुछ नहीं निकल रहा था क्योंकि. तो उसके बाद joined there. Then I went on to stage for the first time, second time. I'll share that first time wala story. That's a very special story.
Sure.
Yeah. So वहाँ पे I went and there I realized कि यार engineering is not my cup of tea. I don't want to do like 5-6 लाख खर्च होंगे, इससे अच्छा कुछ और कर लिया जाए. तो I left engineering after 1 year. एक साल भी इसीलिए क्या, क्योंकि पेरेंट्स को दिखाना था कि कर सकते हैं, बट मन नहीं है करने का.
मन नहीं है करने का.
So I did that, and somehow it happened. I left. My dad wanted me to do graduation. I did not want to do graduation at that time, but he forced me to do, and I did. Then I came across CAT, and when I came across CAT, I used to think it's an exam like IIT. So I was like, yaar, when I came across it, I was like, yaar, ye to 10th wala maths se jo banta tha isme. I was very happy seeing it. I gave CAT. I got 90 percentile, and then I did my MBA. I did my MBA. And during my MBA is when I became highly engrossed into UFC. So all this backstory was just to tell you that how I came across UFC. And because I was always fascinated with WWE. I'm still a huge WWE fan. And I've learned my entire English from watching sports, speaking. Okay. So I speak a little fast because my inspiration comes from Harsha Bhogle, Ravi Shastri. I studied in an English medium school, but you know how English medium schools used to be back then. No? We used to talk in Hindi mein. So yes. वो देख करके मैं क्रिकेट खेलता था ग्राउंड पे. तो आई यूज्ड टू डू माय ओन कमेंट्री. ओह व्हाट अ फैंटास्टिक कवर ड्राइव फ्रॉम अनुराग मानिक. दैट्स सो लाइक प्रॉपर रवि शास्त्री and Harsha Bhogle stuff. And Michael Cole and Jerry the King Lawler and all the WWE announcers, I used to love them. And that is when I went to into MBA, I've always wanted to learn martial arts. Parents kabhi seekhne nahi dete the. And then I started learning martial arts also, and I became a proper UFC fan. When I became a proper UFC fan, I became a fan of Joe Rogan, obviously. I did not know Joe
Okay.
Rogan had a podcast. So I used to follow Joe Rogan because I really used to love him and all and all. When I was after completing my MBA, COVID came 2020 mein, and that is
20,
when Joe
yes.
Rogan podcast got sold to Spotify. And I was like for $100 million. I remember watching that clip
Yes.
on Insta. And I was like, oh, Joe Rogan is a podcast. What is a podcast? That is when I wanted to understand what is a
Okay.
podcast. Karke.
2020 it all started.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Go on,
I
please.
was
Interesting.
following Joe Rogan for 3 years. I did not know he had a podcast, which is world number one. I love
Yes,
that
of
guy.
course, of course.
Yeah, yeah. And then I came across his podcast and I'm like, yeah, this guy is very nice. Yeah, I like this guy. And this is what he's doing as a podcast. mein ye karte hain. And then I was like, oh, fine. I always wanted to create content. I never felt I used to look very bad back in that time. I was very thin, lean, and like I was like, yeah, not a YouTube kind of a face or something I have. So I was like, fine. Podcast is something that I can do. And at that point in time, I was supposed to get married to somebody. I'm not yet married. And so I wanted to impress also someone. So I was like, okay, let me start podcasting. I'll get some fame. It was very materialistic for me. It was never something, I always felt that I have a thing for speaking, talking. I say this in a funny way now. So any girl I reached out to, and we would talk for some time, and they would be like, and when I'll ask them, can we be in a relationship? They'll say, Ki, yaar, Anurag, we like talking to you, but I don't think we can be together. But I want to keep continuing talking to you. So I was like, yaar, what is this? So I was like, love to mil nahi raha hai, paisa hi bana lete hain is cheez se.
Of course.
And so that is like I felt, I can talk to people. I can start talking to people. And where I called a friend of mine. She was in Flipkart back then. And I was like, yeah, I want to start a podcast. And she's like, what is a podcast? I was like, I also don't know much. I know, people, I want to have a conversation, basically interview. And so she was like, fine, let's do how to do it. I was like, I don't know. Then I started I called her. I started phone recording. So I did a phone recording ka on and phone pe wo record kiya हमने. एंड वो रिकॉर्डिंग हुई आधी के बाद ना ग्लिच आने लग गया. आई वाज इन बैंगलोर एंड आई थिंक शी वाज समवेयर इन गुजरात. तो ना कुछ और बारिश हो रही थी बैंगलोर में, तो देयर वाज नो
Of
प्रॉपर
courस
नेटवर्क.
फ्लिकरिंग वगैरह ज्यादा होगी उस
यस
टाइम
यस.
पे.
तो आई वाज लाइक शिट यार, ये तो नहीं हो पाएगा. देन आई गूगल्ड हाउ टू रिकॉर्ड अ पॉडकास्ट, केम अक्रॉस एंकर व्हिच इज नाउ स्पॉटिफाई फॉर
Yes,
पॉडकास्टर्स.
Anchor.fm. Yes.
Yeah, so I downloaded Anchor, made her download Anchor, invited her there, recorded half of the podcast up there, and then how to edit it. So I googled audio joiner apps. So I joined the two audio, used some music from Anchor, and that is how I published it on 23rd July 2020, the first episode.
Oh.
And yeah, that is how it started basically for me. That episode is still there. I had a
So
very
it
thick. Mhm.
it means you
Please.
started with this audio mode, as in you आपने जैसे बताया आप रिकॉर्ड
Yeah,
करके
yeah,
you
ha
you
ha
call
ha.
your friend and all.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, please. Yeah.
So
Okay.
that is how I started. And after a while, I realized, yeah, I'm liking it. I really liked it. So I was like, now it's time to order some microphone and all. And so I ordered, I think, Miono ka podcast recording kit ek aata tha. Aata
Now,
hai, I
no.
guess.
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes, yes.
I ordered it. I was like very happy, set it up and all. I did not know what to do, how podcast editing works, how to get guests. पहला guest तो आ गया, उसके बाद कैसे लेके आए लोगों को. So that is how I started. And luckily, I would say fortunately and luckily, I had a friend who worked in the industry. So I asked her, she was a very good friend. She's a very good friend still. So I asked her, ki, yaar, I want to do this. She's like, okay, I can forward some contacts. The rest is up to you to convert them. I was like, cool, cool. That is something which I can do. And that is how one thing led to another. It's been now 3.5 years, going decently well.
Nice.
And
In fact, आपका जो podcast है उसमें I could see some faces from Bollywood industry also, from actors also.
yes, yeah.
In
So,
starting from a point where you had no idea किसको बुलाना है, and reaching this stage is something it's commendable, of course.
thank you. Yeah. And the COVID helped. In COVID, it was very easy to get guests, to be very honest,
Yes. True,
because
true, true, true.
I would say for them, it was like getting in front of the people. And for me, it was getting better guests. And at that point in time, podcast was in a very nascent stage. I think I started at the right time. The only thing which I lacked was I did not have a proper idea on how to market it. Once if during the second lockdown also, I would have had this mind space that I have right now, how to push content, how to do things, it would have really been a very good place for where I wanted to be, but still it's fine. There were a lot of things. We all cook up our story to satisfy ourselves, and I've cooked up mine, I guess. Why I couldn't do it and all. So I think my story is also there. But yeah, I feel like if I had a little better understanding of the market, it would have really stood out well. And but yeah, obviously a lot of regrets, but that's can't do much about it now.
I think it's the perfect time, in fact, to start. No doubt, a lot of
Yes,
podcasts before pre 2020 से पहले काफी शुरू हो चुके थे, but I think 2020 के बाद ही ज्यादातर मैंने
true. Yeah, yeah.
and the best time is yet to come, if I'm not wrong.
Huh. I mean, like, see, still, like the first mover advantage was there in 2020. And I think that is the point where I started.
Yes,
If I
true.
had a better understanding that this could grow this well, because I just started it as like, something which is very materialistic, right? I never claimed, I had a passion or something. I feel my passion does not come from, it is not inherent for me. I like something, I start doing something, I start enjoying, and then I become passionate about a certain thing. That is how the process works for me. I mean, like, I have started a lot of things with a lot of passion, and they have died down within 3 to 4 months. So I realized, like that general passion wala concept does not apply to things I do. For me, it is mostly starting doing liking stuff, something, some monetary aspect gets trickled down, and that is where my motivation and everything comes from. So I take the things that way. So उसी के हिसाब से I've started doing it now. Now I like doing it. I was not enjoying it that much at that point in time, but I enjoyed a lot more now, because to talk to people, and I am a little into, like, I like getting into the spotlight. I've always been that kid who wanted spotlight. So it's very good for me that way.
Certainly, and I can even see the setup, and you having the best microphone that I use for voiceovers, in fact. तो
Okay.
आपने looks की बहुत आपने ये अलग है मेरा. I use Shure SM58 for recording my
Okay.
voiceovers.
Hmm.
Of course, Shure is the best company in that particular
True.
way.
Yeah, that is there. Yeah. This whole setup I got, and then I had to move. So I have a whole full-time job, right? So I have to shift to the city where the office is there. And like now, when I reached there, I was like, shit, yeah, I got such a nice background and all at home. So I'm at my home right now. Then I'll have to go back again in mid of January. So there I try to do a normal setup and all. I have to get the lights up there. So when I record there, it's quite dull. So now I have to get lights and all up there, set up and all. I have those echo cancellation thing. I've not
Acoustics
yet
and all.
installed acoustics and all.
Acoustics.
I do have to install it still. This room works very well for that.
Yes, the
Because I,
background is looking. In fact, मेरा वो
yes.
बिल्कुल काला काला टाइप सा लगता है वो तो. Of course, मैंने अपने वॉइस ओवर के लिए because this side I
No,
use
no,
for
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
yeah, so
I
this side I
think,
use
yeah.
for podcasting, and that particular side I do all my voiceovers and all.
Yeah.
So, anyways, how this name? May I know this name? How M Square Podcast? Like किस तरह
Yeah.
से नाम का नामकरण कैसे हुआ इसका?
See, I did my MBA in marketing, okay, and I had a huge affinity towards branding and all. I still feel I can do better branding for the podcast, but yeah. So I started with the name Marketing with Manik. That was the name for the first 7, 8 episodes. I remember. Marketing with Manik was the thing. I felt like, I'm very, as I said, I was very passionate about marketing. So I was like, let me do something on marketing, and that is there. And after the initial few episodes, I realized, Marketing with Manik is a very boring name. And I was like, if I have to tell somebody what is the name of the podcast, I have to say Marketing with Manik, and nobody would remember it, to be very honest. Because if somebody told me, मैं भी याद नहीं रखता थोड़े दिन बाद कि अरे हाँ कोई मिला था भूल गया मैं नाम. So I was like, I have to make it short. And I was like, I didn't search much. One day I was just thinking it's called M Square. No, I have to put out an Instagram account. So I was like, क्या नाम रखूं बहुत देर सोचा. I was like Marketing with Manik, and at that time I put in marketing because तब ना Instagram पे बहुत सारे वो होते थे ना pages who used to
हाँ
put
हाँ
out
हाँ.
marketing content, and I used to follow Gary Vee. So I was like, yeah, this is the content of the future, marketing content and all. And then after a point, I realized कि काफी ज्यादा हो गया ये
बहुत
नहीं
ज्यादा हो गया
चलेगा.
अभी मतलब मार्केटिंग एंड नाउ दिस एआई मार्केटिंग तो कुछ ज्यादा
Yes,
ही
yes,
पेजेस
yes.
वगैरह इसके बहुत सारे पेजेस बने हुए हैं और थोड़ा लंबा भी हो जाता नाम हल्का सा मतलब
वही हाँ.
करने के लिए राइट राइट राइट.
तो I was like, यार इसको ना कुछ change करना पड़ेगा. Then I saw there are two M's, and I was like, सबसे easiest name that came into my mind was M Square. And the thing was, I started with the logo. How would I put the logo? So I'm a very big fan of edgy shapes, right? I don't like rounded things and all, to be very honest, in text and all. So I'm a huge fan of edgy shapes. So I don't like circle, polygon and all. Sorry, circle, sphere and all. I love that square, rectangle, and I'm a
स्क्वायर.
huge fan of squares. I love squares as a shape.
सो
Yeah, so I
So
was
both
like,
the
yeah, that's
things
so
are covered
fine.
in
Yeah,
this.
M square it came, and it was like there were two M's. So initially I thought of M and then a square. What is it called? Super text, right? So on
Yes,
top.
yes, right, right.
Yeah. So, but then I was like, yeah, that looks sounds cool. And I don't remember that there was some company called N Square Planet which used to sell music, I guess, long ago. And it
Long
rang
ago.
a bell in my head. I was like, yeah, this looks fine. And I would always have a recall value, even though people wouldn't have heard me, they would be feeling like, yeah, kahin to suna hai, kahin to suna hai. And that would be there as a recall value in their head. So I was like, cool, let me put it out that. And luckily, M Square podcast was available on Instagram. I was very happy. I was like, that username is also available. That
Yes,
website
at
was
the rate.
also available. Yeah, that website was also available with the name, and I was like, fine, yeah, this is a thing. I first of all and go and check the website before naming anything. No, मैं पहले
Of course,
website
डोमेन नेम
availability देख
सबसे
लेता हूँ.
पहले,
हाँ,
डोमेन नेम वगैरह सबसे पहले
तो
देखते हैं,
बहुत
राइट?
इंपॉर्टेंट था. तो आई वाज लाइक डोमेन नेम भी अवेलेबल है बिना किसी अंडरस्कोर वगैरह डाले वगैरह. तो आई वाज लाइक यार फाइन. तो आई टुक इट अप and it worked out. It becomes easy to tell. It sounds a little fancy, at least to me. It sounds fancy, and so
It is
I
a
kept that name.
unique concept, मुझे जब पूरा पता चला एम स्क्वायर, मार्केटिंग विद मानिक एंड
हाँ,
योर
no,
आपका फेवरेट जो एक इन टर्म्स ऑफ शेप एंड ऑल
हाँ, हाँ,
स्क्वायर
हाँ.
एंड ऑल्सो ऑल कंबाइंड.
Yeah. So, and also marketing with Manik, then I was like, see, then I always look at things from a little bit of a business perspective. Okay? When I do workshops, I say कि you need to know whether to treat your podcast कि आपको उसको as a business treat करना है या as a hobby treat करना है. I was like, I already have a lot of hobbies, तो इसको तो as a hobby नहीं कर सकता मैं. I do martial arts as a hobby. I cannot be ever a professional fighter, is what I feel. I can be a professional ring announcer, but fighter to nahi. I realized it very early. So I was like, yeah, this thought to run it as a business. So I was like, fine, I just cannot put out marketing content. And then I started thinking it from terms of how I can monetize it, कैसे इसमें से पैसे आ सकते हैं and all. I realized कि interview based would be a good option to grow also in terms
Of
and
course.
also to get it monetized also in terms of getting monetized. And I was like, if I just put out marketing content, there is not going to be much scope for me. So I was like, let me, diversify as much as possible. I was like, 8 podcasts I'll have where I can, do anything I want. I should not be limited by the concept that
Limited.
I've chosen. So फिर उसी से I started. I try to keep it, related to business as much as possible, 80 to 90%. But then I also understood that it is going to have an aspirational value. I recently saw a reel that if you want to create a brand, it should have an aspirational value in tier one cities. And I was like, okay, that is where I have to get good guests, people who are working in the industry, actors or actresses and all, and do things like that. So that is where the aspirational value tried to bring in to get in some guests and all into the podcast and all. And I think that really worked well in terms of everything which I was trying to do. It was all a hit and run I was trying. Luckily, it
Of
hit up
course.
for me. So a lot of things I've tried that have not worked. So it works both ways. So I think yes.
Anyways, like a lot of M's in your life, M has a significance, marketing, martial arts.
Yeah. Oh,
Anyways,
yeah.
just
My
adding.
surname is also there at MC. I
Yeah,
never realized.
वही मैं कह रहा था.
हाँ, हाँ,
So
हाँ.
anyways, talking about the M Square podcast, I would like to
Mm-hmm.
ask you four aspects related to this.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of your reach, personal branding, monetization, you as a coming up as a podcast mentor, expert in a lot of
Yeah.
things. ये podcast, how it has helped in shaping your expertise in this particular space in terms of your reach also. थोड़ा अगर आप बता सकते हैं इस बारे में.
In terms of reach, as in, if you can just specify the question a little bit, I can, niche down into
In
it. Ki
terms
what
of
you're
the
trying to.
opportunities, monetization,
Acha.
overall.
Hmm. Yeah, see, when I started with the interviews, first of all, the thing is you get the guest ka audience, right? And when you get your guest ka audience, there are a lot of people either who want to learn podcasting, either who want to start their own podcast. And also, after a point, there are certain people who are doing a lot of events across, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah. So, which that kind of audience you might not have. So you have to figure out, like just the way I do like one simple exercise, I figure out people who are doing a lot of events, right? Because they will be in touch with a lot of event planners. Then I figure out people who are doing a lot of college shows, because they'll be in touch with a lot of colleges. So when you appear on their story, when you appear on their feed, it automatically your name would be registered in the subconscious of the people who are following them, right? And
Yes,
that
yes.
is how I get the events that I do. Oh, that's a secret. This is not how I get. But yeah, this is one of the ways that some things come across you and they come across you and then they want to work with you or something like that. So it depends. So that is how the helping the guest grows across. It increases your brand value. I'll tell you, when I got Jugadu Kamlesh from Shark Tank India, it just, I mean, like then I started getting mails from people who are appearing on Shark Tank as pitches. We also appeared on Shark Tank. We would want to be on your podcast. This is there, and their marketing team reaching out, and so all of these things start happening. So that is happened with Jugadu Kamlesh. If I tell you the Jugadu Kamlesh story, I followed him after watching Shark Tank. I loved his episode to the core of my heart. I have watched his episode over 50 times. And I followed him. I dropped him a lot of DMs. Want to have you on the show, on the show. Obviously, they wouldn't watch it because their account was growing. They were getting a lot of DMs. One day, he did a live on Instagram. I requested to be in that live. He accepted the request, and he accepted the request. I have watched his episode end and end through and out, right? And I believe this is what I call the homework. And I do not do it for the sake of getting the guest. I do it because I like doing it. I've watched his episode because I loved the episode. And when I speak, to him about the episode, there is a passion. I talk about passion and emotion that comes across. And I'm a guy who banks on emotion very highly. I mean, like I cannot do things which I'm not emotional about. So I cannot have guests I do not feel connected to or cannot, emotionally connect to the work that they are doing.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. So I asked him, I told him, and he was very happy the way I conveyed it because I remembered each and everything he did on the episode and dialogues he gave. And also I told him, and then I requested him, if I do a podcast, would you please accept the invite? He's like, yes, why not? Just send me a DM. I said, I have dropped you a lot of DMs. If you can check. He checked it on the live. He sent me his number, and that is how I got him as a guest on the podcast. So I feel, if you really connect with something so emotionally, and I think that works out well for me. So that is what I try to do. Even with Shruti Seth, Shruti ma'am from Shararat.
Yes, Shruti
and like,
Seth, yes.
yeah, I remembered the episodes of Shararat because I've watched it very fanatically as a kid. Okay. I remembered the episodes. So when I reached out to her, when we were talking before the episode, I could tell her that this episode mein ye hua tha, is episode mein ye hua tha, yahan pe aisa hua tha. So, the guest also feels
connection.
connection.
You have seen the content, you're passionate about
Yes.
actually inviting her on your show.
Yeah. So I think that works out really well. We signed her up for 30-40 minutes. It went on for 1.5 hours. And like that works out well. So I call it flattery because that is, what sounds cool. But I watch the work, I like the work, and then I talk about their work to them. So in a way, it is called flattery also. People say, flattery करने से तो लगता है कि, you are sucking up to them या फिर आप जबरदस्ती कर रहे हो, फर्क पड़ता है. मैं बोला यार, if you really watch the work, if you notice things that they're doing, तब वो flattery नहीं लगती. Then it looks like a genuine.
Yes.
What is that? Genuine. There's this word कि genuine में आप सही में तुमको appreciate. Genuine appreciation. It looks like हाँ. So I think that is what I've done. That is what I've learned to do better because I always take feedback of every episode that I do. Right? Because so every the first episode में मेरे को यही बोला गया था कि second episode था शायद कि यार you did not introduce me well. I did not feel welcomed enough. I have done so much work and it was not all covered. And I made it a point to do that. So now when I introduce my guest, I've always been a fan of WWE and UFC, so I introduce them as they introduce their fighters and all.
Got it.
Basically how Ravi Shastri does nowadays. So that is how I introduce them, with their work and all. And people feel good. Even I feel good about it. So it's basically, it's normal human emotions that when you get, when your work gets noticed and you've done it with a lot of passion, people like it. So that is how it went. So monetization and all in aspects, this is how it worked out.
And of course, see this, coming on the show and all that's all secondary. But जो आपका passion दिखता है जब आप किसी के साथ, आपके काम को देखते हैं, they can feel the passion, optimism in you. And anyways, one thing I would like to ask, आपने जैसे आपका जो podcast शुरू हुआ था, if I'm not wrong, it started in the audio version initially.
Yes. Yeah.
शुरुआत के कुछ interviews जैसे audio में ही थे शायद, only audio mode में थे. So how it start, जैसे आपका अब तो you, of course, you have a YouTube channel also. जैसे if you talk about Shruti Seth, उनका इंटरव्यू तो बकायदा पूरा अपने वीडियो कवर किया हुआ था. So from which particular episode you switched to video also, because in the hybrid mode?
So I'll tell you, I have episodes of all people in video. I always recorded on video itself, right? The only reason
some episodes initial, if I'm not wrong, only a few episodes. If I'm not wrong, of course.
No. The thing is, I've not released them. Yeah, I have videos for all. The thing was, it used to take a lot of time to edit videos. I churned out the first audio episode in July of 23rd, 2020. Next episode, I could only do it in November. because I did not know how to edit also audio episodes, right? And I used to do it in one go because I was like, "Yeah, जितना कम editing मेरे को करना पड़े." And video editing का तो कोई scope ही नहीं था मेरे पास, and it took me a lot of time to get a video editor in place because with
Yes.
work I was not able to edit videos, and I find it very I'm very lazy in editing videos also. I mean, like I feel it very cumbersome process to do it.
करना ही पड़ता है. You have
हाँ,
to ये तो आउटसोर्स करना ही पड़ता है. And
true.
especially in
So
my particular aspect, just to correlate,
हाँ
because
हाँ
I'm a voice over artist, so पूरे दिन ऑडियो एडिटिंग चलती रहती है. I'm working on Audacity
हाँ
और
हाँ
अदर
हाँ
सॉफ्टवेयर, तो वैसी ऑडियो से फुर्सत नहीं मिलती. उसके बाद फिर ये वीडियो आ जाए तो फिर तो मतलब
वही. So
बहुत
I
ज्यादा.
could only edit a very few amount of videos, and after a point, there were certain things in my life also that I could not upload also at times. Not at times. I still don't upload audios as frequently as I can. I have at least 40, 45 episodes with me to still be uploaded, which I've recorded at least year ago also. Yeah. Like in 2022, I would say ki I uploaded the least number of episodes in 2022, and I recorded the most number of episodes in 2022. Every month I was
Okay.
doing 4 interviews as such with very good people and all. I've done Pixary. Now those people have grown beyond 1 million, and I'm like, I have to upload their episodes because that is there. And in 2023 is when I started uploading a much more regular frequency, I would say. So I have episodes. I think I've put out 43. I would have recorded episodes of video of about 40 people. 3, 4 I might not have it. And this year also I've done it like so. That is where I realized, yeah, video was. That's why I say no. I did not have that bandwidth in my mind in 2020 when I started, because I always knew कि video से ही करना पड़ेगा. Because in
Video.
2021 I was a part of this IFP India Film Project, and Spotify did a podcast labs in India. They did a 4 month long program, 6 month, yeah. There were tasks you have to do, and then you were all allotted one podcaster who was a very senior podcaster in India. So some people's Desi Crime podcast is there, no? So that
Yes, yes,
Aryan
yes,
was one
Desi
of the
crime.
mentors for a group of people. So my mentor in that was Zarina Poonawala was my mentor, and she had a podcast called Life Manifesto. So she used to we became good friends now, and then she used to tell me how to do it, what to do, and so there I graduated. So there were around 1,200 people. I was one of the 33 people who finally graduated from the first labs. Then we did one with this. It was called Voice of Anchor. It was with Winkle and Spotify, where I came in ninth and all. So that is where I realized, I have to put in much more efforts than I'm putting in. And then 2022 came, did not put much efforts at all. 23 also, first half I didn't do much. And then I realized here I have to start putting out content, because I started putting out more video content and I realized it's difficult to get guests post COVID. Right? During COVID, it was very easy to get. Now I realized, then I realized I have to do a bit of branding for the podcast. Otherwise, guests nahi aayenge. I have to put out video content.
वीडियो
So
डालना ही
now,
पड़ेगा.
yes,
Right, right.
now I will put out all the videos that I have there. So you will see much more content coming across on YouTube. And now I've got most of my videos edited already. So now I'll start
That's
churning it out.
That's
Yeah.
why, आप जैसे आपने कहा कि
Hmm.
some videos you have not uploaded, so that's why I was wondering कि शायद हो सकता
Yeah,
है आपने
yeah,
ऑडियो में शुरू किया और then you later on you switch to video, पर आपने
yeah.
ज्यादातर सारा वीडियो में ही रिकॉर्ड किया था मतलब
Yes, yes. I
शुरुआत से.
always recorded on Zoom. I
Okay.
recently switched to Riverside, and I switched to Riverside this year across August, July, August. Yeah, switched to Riverside to record.
Riverside, in fact, Riverside and this one more, I forgot this name, Zencaster. They are good
Yeah,
platforms, but
yeah,
in India, पता नहीं किसी के उसमें connect होता है नहीं होता है. That's the question
yeah.
mark.
I lost a guest because of recording on Riverside yesterday. Yesterday it happened. Yesterday I had a
Okay.
recording, and it just did not work on a laptop. It just did not work on a laptop.
Yeah,
Like it was.
configuration.
Yeah, they have to update the software, and they will update the browser, and they were not ready to update the browser. And like, yeah, I cannot do it on Zoom right now. If you give me a day, I'll do it on Zoom. I got my Zoom ka subscription cancelled last week. No, sorry, I think July May I canceled my Zoom, because the problem was, no, I would have a good connection. The guest would not have a
Guest
good,
would not have, yeah.
and then वो पूरा वीडियो का point ही खराब हो जाता है. And now I've made it a point that until and unless the guest collaborates on their Instagram with me, I tried not to do the interview. I was like, yeah, see, otherwise there is nothing in me to do it ना, to do it for free, to be very honest. कि अगर आप collaborate ही नहीं करोगे तो I'm not getting the reach I'm looking for. तो and I was like, अगर मैं Zoom में करूंगा फिर quality खराब हो जाएगी, फिर आप बोलोगे कि I cannot accept आपका request because the quality is not good. So and it hurts to let guests go now. I mean, like, I've never done it, no. So it feels very hurtful. I feel I'm being rude and arrogant, and I've never been that arrogant sort of a person. And it feels very bad also because they reach out, their PR agencies reach out. So I have to figure out one common ground कि हम क्या कर सकते हैं. So still trying to figure out. But ये yesterday हुआ था. They were like Zoom पे अभी हम कर लेंगे. मैंने बोला यार मेरा MacBook है 256 GB की इसकी SSD है और उसमें गिन के 3 GB खाली है. 3 GB तो ऐसे ही भर जाएगा जूम में मैं अगर
Of
180
course.
1080 पे है. तो आई लाइक यू गिव मी अ डे आई एम्प्टी आउट माय दिस बिकॉज 3 बजे को रिकॉर्ड करना था 3:15 तो उनको फिगर आउट करते हो गया था. एंड दे लाइक गूगल मीट पे कर लेते हैं. मतलब गूगल मीट पे तो मैं नहीं करूंगा. गूगल मीट पे
गूगल
तो
मीट
कुछ
पे
नहीं
तो
आने वाला है.
क्वालिटी भी
कुछ
नहीं
भी नहीं.
आएगी, और शायद रिकॉर्डिंग भी रिस्ट्रिक्टेड होती है उनके उसमें,
हाँ
शायद मे
और
भी पेड
ऑडियो
प्लान पे होती है, राइट?
वही और ऑडियो तो आएगा भी नहीं अच्छा चाहे कोई भी माइक
हाँ,
यूज कर लो आई
ऑडियो नहीं
फील.
आएगा, ऑडियो नहीं आएगा, ऑडियो नहीं
तो
आएगा।
फिर आई वाज लाइक फाइन यार लाइक आई हैव टू लेट गो. इट वाज विद अ हेवी हार्ट दैट आई हैव टू से नो कि आई कांट डू इट ऑन लाइक जूम. इफ यू गिव मी अ डे आज हम कर सकते हैं 29th को. पर कल देयर को एटलीस्ट 1.5 घंटा तो लगेगा. कौन सी फाइल में रखूं कौन सी फाइल में हटाऊं. तो
ऑफ कोर्स।
दैट इज हाउ आई स्विच्ड टू रिवरसाइड. अभी रिवरसाइड इज वेरी गुड इन टर्म्स ऑफ वीडियो
नहीं
एडिटिंग
है,
आल्सो
नो
यार.
डाउट, नो डाउट। वो वीडियो
यू
एडिटिंग
जस्ट
में इनफैक्ट कुछ ऐसे जो टूल्स हैं, डीस्क्रिप्ट, रिवरसाइड, ये तो कमाल के टूल्स हैं। राइट,
Descript
राइट।
was the first tool I ever used to edit because audio editing के लिए because बहुत अच्छा easy होता था वो कि text select किया text remove करा audio गायब हो गई. And I was used to love that.
ये
I
अलग
used it for a very long time.
एआई पे ही जो काम कर रहा है, राइट, राइट, राइट।
हम्म.
So, anyways, coming on this particular part, that is, 2024 is coming. सिर्फ 2 दिन ही बाकी है, आज 29th है।
हाँ
तो podcasting as a career in 2024, considering the recent developments, Spotify and then YouTube music getting into
हाँ.
this and all. So, what would you like to say, advice in terms of whatever solo podcast or interview podcast to the beginners from
See,
your
I'll
part?
always say कि I am a person. See, people say कि you should only have plan A, plan A, plan A. Don't have a plan B. And well, I do not believe in that because that was for the top 1% of the world. And I've always believed that I might be at best above average or most of the times average. So I feel कि I work my best when I have a plan B. Okay, I cannot work just with a plan A. And so I always say कि podcasting as the only career, uh, if you have a good background, if you have a good family background, then it's well and fine. Dive right into it, pour in the money you want to pour in and do a great job. But if not, then it can always be something that you build on the side, right? You have to build it like watering a plant while you have a whole,
Of
you
course.
have something that you can always fall back on. You have a job or whatever you want to do. So that way it's a good and a promising aspect of things. Definitely you should dive into it. It's where YouTube was in 2012 or 2013. Right now it is there. And I think one should definitely give it a try, not miss out on it. And with so many options, with Spotify turning on the what do you say monetization Indian creators के लिए also, and a lot of platforms. I think Hubhopper is also there who
अब
offer
आपको भी है।
subscription monetization. हाँ. So I would say कि definitely you should dive into it. It's a right time. It's a little late, but it's fine. Yeah, I dived in the right time, did decent where I could have done much more. So very right time to get into it. For a solo podcaster, I would also say that the same thing. I always feel if you want in terms of monetization, interview is the best format to do it.
Of
You
course.
can start monetizing as soon as possible because for your individual show, I have an individual show called Anurag Manik show. It did not do much well. First 1 year I got 100 downloads and all, and that is when I started with this interview format. It also started picking up because now people get from here to there also. Last year we got streamed in 97 countries. Prior to 2020, it was just 5 countries. Last year we became the top 10 podcast for the Spotify ad wala thing I'm telling. So for
Oh,
10,000 people. So we are top 10 podcast for 10,000 people. Prior to that year, we were just for like 900 people or something. So I think it has grown, it is growing, and maybe next year also it grows. It will definitely grow. I'm hoping, I'm banking on it to be very honest. And so it's a very right time to dive into it. Always start with your strength, right? I always say ki I use this analogy in my workshops ki जब भी हम स्कूल में थे या कॉलेज में थे ना, देयर वाज वन सब्जेक्ट. हर सब्जेक्ट का कोई बेस्ट पर्सन होता था उस पूरे कॉलेज में, राइट? जो टीचर से बेहतर समझाता था उस सब्जेक्ट को. तो आप
हाँ,
उसके पास
हाँ।
जाते थे समझने के लिए कि क्या है कैसा है. ठीक है, हम भी आप भी किसी ना किसी सब्जेक्ट में बेस्ट रहे होगे अपने कॉलेज या स्कूल में. सो फिगर आउट व्हाट यू आर बेस्ट एट इन टर्म्स ऑफ पॉडकास्टिंग ऑल्सो. पीपल बोलते हैं ना कि यू हैव टू फिगर आउट अ नीश, दिस figure out what is the best niche for yourself.
Subject niche, yes.
Like I was always good at marketing, so I could venture into business, entrepreneurship, talking to people, sales. So sales, when I say, it's not just to selling stuff, I can talk well to people. That is what I'm talking about, right? So every time I went on stage, I was very nice at, good at, decent at. So I loved that adulation when it comes. So I always like it. So that is where I was good at. So, that is where I ventured into podcasting, talking to people, interview format, conversational format of podcasting. So वो है. और अगर if you just want to start, there are 3-4 versions that work really well. One is motivation, other one is erotica, third one I think is interview format, and then the business. I feel if it picks up, it's a very monetizable aspect, because you will get a lot of sponsorships from startups which get a lot of funding. So if the funding winter ends, you will get a lot of people who would want to be on your podcast, sponsor your podcast. So
brand storytelling, of course.
Yes, yeah.
It's a major area over there.
Yeah. So that really works in your benefit. Like if you start a interview based format, people say it is very highly rated and all, hyped, overhyped. It's overhyped because it brings in the numbers, it brings in the money that people are looking for. Right now it is there. After a while, like all big podcasts in India that you see that are in the people size, that are in the mainstream, there are amazing podcasts out there, in terms of storytelling. I do not demean anybody, but the people who are getting the major numbers are Ranveer Alabadia, Dostcast, Raj Shamani, and 2-3 other more like real hit podcasts and all. They generate the biggest numbers. They're all interview format podcasts,
like
right?
Interview format and kind of panel discussion.
Panel discussion, same.
Panel discussion.
So when I say interview, I do not limit it to one-on-one. It can be 4-5 people talking,
4-5
sitting
people
in
talking.
Yeah.
And when I say interview podcast also.
Yeah,
A lot of.
And when I say interview format, it does not mean 3 friends sitting and talking. Then I do not feel that is an interview. I say interview when you invite guests who are from different streams, not even different streams, same stream se bhi ho sakte hain, businessmen hi ho sakte hain. That is what I call an interview, right? Who is not a core member of your podcast. It cannot be like 4 people sitting and doing an interview of each other. I do not consider that as such. It can be very entertaining. There is one podcast that has started doing it, and I really like what they do. They talk about wrestling. WWE, they talk about.
Okay.
And they're very funny. They're very funny about it also. So I like them. Apart from that, but again, it's limited in monetization terms, right? You will have very limited monetization aspects.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but when you have different guests, you have a wide variety. You're not limited to one aspect. And I say this only for pure podcasters, right? Who are in India, majority of the people who are into podcasting are either actors or people who have a good following on Instagram or who were YouTubers before or are currently are. So this is उनका एक extended arm है कि हम ये field of content भी pursue कर सकते हैं. For me, it was podcast, and now I'm trying to do all those different things, right? So I chose one stream, and now I'm trying to figure out the other streams. So थोड़ा उल्टा है. So people who just want to start podcast. So this is how I say, yeah, this is how you can, actually venture into different things. So if you're just a podcaster, interview format works. It works well. It worked well for me. So I can say my individual shows didn't do well. So yeah.
Initially, though, of course, whenever you start something, initial to invite guests and all, शुरुआत में तो ऐसे होता है अपने जो जानकार जैसे it's happened with you also, friend को बुला लिया. मेरे भी case में in my other podcast about the voice industry, it all started like that. And specific.
So I think that is very important. And one thing I say is like, be shameless. Be very shameless in asking people to come on the show, talking about your show. Be very shameless. I remember Spotify Podcasters Day tha abhi, Delhi mein tha. And I would live in Noida, so I was like, cool, I have to go to Delhi. I went to Vista Print. Vista Print is a website that prints t-shirt. No. I got a t-shirt printed with all the achievements I have, all the guests I have. I got it printed. I like ऐसे ये वो पूरा font दिया and got it printed. I wore it. I was very embarrassed when I was doing it. It was very embarrassing because everybody gets stressed up, right? Because Raj Kumar Rao is coming. All the big people will be there, and I was like, fine, yeah. I carried a jacket in case अगर बहुत ज़्यादा embarrassing हो जाता तो I'll just उसके ऊपर jacket पहन लूँगा. But I was like, yeah, it's fine, be shameless. मैं गौरव तनेजा को बहुत फॉलो करता हूँ ना, गौरव फ्लाइंग बीस्ट. तो उन्होंने एक बोला था कि यार क्या बोलते हैं, ये जो व्लॉगिंग होती है ना, बहुत बेशर्मी का काम होता है क्योंकि लोग आपको घूर के देखते रहते हैं. एंड जब वर्ल्ड कप हो रहा था, T20 वर्ल्ड कप लास्ट ईयर, तो उसने पूरा क्रिकेट का गियर पहना था उन्होंने, एंड बैट हेलमेट पहन के वो एयरपोर्ट में उन्होंने चेक इन किया था. ठीक है, पैड्स, बैट, हेलमेट, ग्लव्स, पूरा क्रिकेट किट में रेडी होके उन्होंने चेक इन कराया था अपना. So I was like, yeah, if a person who has 6 million subscribers now, even more, can do all of this because that
हम क्यों नहीं
sells.
कर सकते?
They're like, I'm not even there to feel this much ashamed. Yeah, okay, fine. 10 people will judge. If I get one, two good people meet me, I met a lot of good people. And they were like, we want this guts, what you're doing, really great. Yeah, the work that you're doing, got to interact with a lot of people, good people, great people also. And that worked out well for me. So I realized, yeah, until and unless you have a very big audience, there is nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah, it's all in the mind. And then I've always been shameful in asking people, right? Somebody says something and I meet, जैसे जुगाड़ू कमलेश का किया था मैंने, इंस्टाग्राम लाइव पे आके इनवाइट कर लिया उनको, मैसेजेस भेज के रखे थे कि क्या पता कब मौका मिल जाए.
उसमें एक एक बहुत अच्छा माइंडसेट है, बिकॉज
हाँ,
इफ यू टॉक टू 5 people, 10 people, 15 people, ठीक है यार, ज्यादा ज्यादा क्या होगा, मना करेंगे.
वही.
व्हाट्स द वर्स्ट दैट्स गोना हैपन?
Yeah.
वो
I mean,
चीज है
like,
तो
and people have said, your show is not good enough that I'll be there. It's such a small show. I'm like, fine, yeah, it's fine. I agree. I agree it's a small show, right? Once you accept, right? So the thing is, I'll tell you, at times it happens with me that I invite people. It happened very recently. So because we did a creator summit in IIT Bombay, Mood Indigo, right? So we were part of Mood Indigo. We invited 5-6 people to be a part of panel who have done. There was a show called Sapne Sunane Ladakpan Ke. So Rupal Tyagi came in, and if you have watched the show Freelancer, which is there on Hotstar.
यस
So
यस
they,
यस. अभी
so
उसका द ऑल द 7 episodes, अभी मैं एक
yes.
दो दिन पहले ही खत्म किया मैंने.
So Nabila, right? The one who Nabila was there in that show, which the main lead actress meets, like who goes out with Mohit Raina, na, initially, then she gets
Yeah.
killed. Yeah, so she was there. She was there
Oh.
in the creative panel summit. So Breshna is her name. So Breshna came in, and we had one YouTuber who has 500K subscribers, so we all came in. It was very nice, right? But it happened with me a while ago. We are doing one event, and it was in a college. I think it was in April, May, I guess. And I invited a guest, and that guest was like, they thought that would be in their biggest auditoriums and all, the college ka biggest auditorium, which is around 1,000 seating capacity mein, and this they told me one day before, like 2 days before I sent them what is the location for the event, and I was inside a college, they're like, a day on the day of the event morning में they बोलते हैं कि यार ये तो वहां पे नहीं हो रहा. मैंने बोला हाँ, पहले ही बता दिया था ना वहां पे नहीं होगा. And they're like, नहीं, हमको तो लगा था वहीं पे होगा. मैंने बोला यार, first of all there has to be a sense of realization कि, see, I realize that I'm not yet there, right? I'm not yet where it can, like, I can attract 1,000 people to fill an auditorium, right? I can attract 200, 300 people to fill an auditorium. I know where I am right now, and I'll take steps to go there. And I wanted to say this on the guest face कि यार, see, neither am I there, and nor do I feel कि आपसे उतने लोग आएंगे for you to be there.
Of
I couldn't
course.
say, I said, yeah, no, yeah, but this is there, and they did not show up. And I was not very angry or something. I was very annoyed the fact that people do not understand where they stand. So now, as a podcaster, when you start, you have to take in a lot of humiliation, I would say. Because when you're Besharam, you have to face the humiliation. Some or the other person will say it on your face. Not everybody is kind enough, right? So this happens, and and if you know where you stand in life, no, you will be immune to it. I was like, fine, yeah, I know this is where I stand. I know I cannot fill out a convocation hall. I cannot fill out the auditorium of 2,000 people. I'm not Zakir Khan, यार, कि मैं जाऊंगा और लोग वो
लोग आ
दीवाने होके
जाएंगे.
मेरे पीछे आ रहे हैं. नहीं होगा अभी वो. It will take some time. It might or it may not happen. I'm striving for it to happen, and I think it will happen someday. Not today is not the day that it will happen. So when I say be Besharam, it does not mean that I'm immune. I feel bad at times, but then I have to understand कि एक दो दिन वो बुरा लगेगा, तीसरे दिन I have to be fine. So when you are Beshram, some people will rebuke you and all, and you have to be okay with that at times. So I've always been Beshram. I've asked people left, right, and center. And like some people have responded to the email, and then they've responded saying, "Oh shit, we thought it's a big podcast. It is not." So I was like, fine, yeah, I
होता है.
agree. Yeah, so that is fine, yeah. Matlab, that's a part and parcel of it. Now I'm very much immune to hate and all. One day a guy posted something about me on Instagram. They say these guests are there. I could not find them. Where are they? So I'm like, yeah. Then I pinged him. How could you not find them? He's like, there is no reels on your Instagram post. And like in my Instagram, no, there is a Spotify podcast. Click there, and the episodes are there.
All
And
episodes.
then and then he did not respond to that message, and then he did not remove the story, and it keeps happening.
होता रहता है
So
सब.
that is fine. Yeah, that's a part and parcel of being Besharam. But I always feel, yeah, a lot of people, like people say, why should we go and ask people? People should come to us. So for people to come to you, you have to do enough work, right?
Yes,
Before
of
doing
course,
enough
of
work,
course.
you
आपको
cannot ask.
बट क्यों क्यों पूछेंगे आपको? मतलब वही
क्यों ही
होता है ना.
पूछेंगे?
क्यों
पॉइंट है ना यार.
पूछेंगे?
मतलब अगर मेरा टैलेंट मेरे ही अंदर रह गया, तो कौन ही आके मेरे से पूछ रहा है कि क्या है. Until
Correct, correct.
unless I put out something, go out, talk to people, they're like, guests should, ask to be in my. Now people reach out, right? Now people reach out, कि can we want to be on your podcast and all. It was not the, and not many people also. Like 2-3 ही लोग आते हैं. ऐसा भी नहीं कि लोग पागल हो रहे हैं मेरे podcast पे आने के लिए. Though I want that, I would not say no to it.
Of
कि
course,
होना
every
चाहिए ऐसा.
podcaster wants that. Yeah.
हाँ. But अभी वहाँ पे I've not reached. So I get very happy when I receive a DM that that we would want to be a part of it and all. I was like very sure, why not? Send me the profile if it is in sync with what we do. Why not? And I say 95% yes to people. I don't say no, because a lot of people said yes to me when they had all the rights to say no to me. Ki I won't be on your show. So I make it a point. Ki no, until unless it's a totally mismatch to what we do, we don't say no. And if I
Oh,
have the funds to produce the episode, that
of
is also
course,
very
of
yeah.
course, of course.
Yeah. So that is also a very criteria. So I tell them, next 6 months I cannot do. Post 6 months we can do something like that.
No, seriously, I can say the key takeaways that you said, in terms of finalizing the niche and of course be a shameless person.
Yeah,
Initially,
yeah.
of course, reaching out to people and all, like होता है ना
True.
अपना एक होता है ना जब fear of failure, वो एक जो चीज होती है जो बीच में आ सकते हैं लोगों के. And of course, keep your ego aside. लोग मना करेंगे आपको.
Yeah.
Of course,
I
of course.
feel once, if you do not have an audience, and when you're starting as a podcaster, you will not have an audience also, right? You do not have any medium. So you have to do anything under the sun until and unless it harms anybody. वो मत करना. But you have to do anything under the sun to build that audience. You cannot command until and unless you have the numbers. And I've learned it from WWE and UFC. The people who are the needle movers know the companies listen to them only. If you can bring in the numbers, it is with any. That's why people hate corporate also, because if you do not bring in the numbers, nobody values you.
Nobody
Right?
values you.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you can bring in the numbers, then only you have a commanding seat at the table. Otherwise, you won't have it. So first of all, get those
Absolutely.
numbers, get these things across, and then only you will have what you want. Right? Then things starts flowing on their own. Like मैं कहता हूँ यार, I am a huge fan of Shah Rukh Khan यार. He did all the movies with other people rejected. He did not say no to. He did. उन्होंने वो सारी movies करी villain के character में, which other people rejected, and then the kind of work वो करना चाहते थे started flowing into him. If it happens with Shah Rukh Khan यार, we are nowhere near.
Of
जहाँ पे
course.
वो है.
वो
तो
see, in terms of his initial जो approach होता था, approaching the
हाँ
directors and जो उसका एक जो humiliation है ना, see, ऐसे
वही
बादशाह नहीं बन गया वो.
हाँ that you
Yeah.
have to have that humility यार. मतलब without it, you're not going to last long in the
He's a
race.
different, I don't know what to call it, a brand or something. I'm a big SRK fan.
Same
And,
plus
started and being a mimicry artist. अपनी कुर्सी की पेटी बांध लो, मौसम बिगड़ने वाला है. So, anyways, Anurag, it was great to have you on Podcast Par Charcha.
same यार
This चर्चा is मतलब चाहते ही नहीं खत्म हो, चलती रहे. But somewhere, of course, it has to be an endpoint because we can have another part in the future.
Yeah, sure,
And I
sure.
really enjoyed talking to you. It was great to have you. And about the journey of your podcast, you getting into podcasting and जो आपने सारे अपने किस्से बताए. So wish you all the best for all your ventures, of course, for your podcast. And yeah, we'll meet again soon.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Harsh, for having me.